just have to get the cue to the. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone can stand and repeat with me. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, can we have roll call?
Barbara Bonilla,
Present.
Mariko Enriquez, Neil Mariles,
Here.
Maida Okello, and Sam Monet.
Present.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have any public comment? Okay, then we'll go into the presentations. We'll start with 4.1, the Park Shuttle Update. Carla?
Good afternoon, commissioners. Sorry. Delayed. Voice delay. Or no. Presentation delay.
I'll just note, and that you all are aware that this is our first televised meeting. So this is being televised live on local access TV and will be captured for our website for eternity. So, all right.
Okay, I'll try it. So today we're here because we actually have reached the year 1 mark on the Park Shuttle, and we thought we'd give you an update, as well as we're at the time where we would reconsider, or we would consider if we were going to apply for renewal of grant funding. So oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Just sort of to refresh your memory and how we got to this point and why we launched on the shuttle concept. In 2015, our visitor study in partnership with San Francisco State University identified some needs and some potential reasons why visitors in communities that were part of our focus group stated that they may not be visiting parks. And of course, transportation voids was one, and that really was reflected in the data that showed that about 19% of those community members in the focus groups, which was Pescadero, Daly City, East Palo Alto, and North Fair Oaks, didn't own a car. Realizing where our parks are, and they're not necessarily on Samtrans routes, it makes it challenging to go to parks. In addition, we knew that a certain percentage of the population were really more comfortable with materials and staff that spoke their native language, primarily Spanish. And some of the people of the focus groups weren't always familiar with our services, which sort of really spoke to the need for us to do some more community outreach in those specific communities. Driving like two hands here. What we ended up doing was looking at where we could provide a shuttle service to parks that had well-established programming, were really well known for their hiking trails, as well as had visitor centers and friends groups that could sort of help partner with the programming. and then look at proximity to those locations, Edgewood and Wonderlick. And so East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and North Fair Oaks and Redwood City really sort of seemed like the natural and the closest parks to these communities. In addition, we looked at where parking was really a challenge and where there was congestion and limited parking. Okay. This is like my remote control at home. So when you think about the visitor experience that we were trying to create with the park shuttle was really a welcoming atmosphere, having staff that reflected, the language, interests, and desires of some of these visitors, and that was really responding to what we heard in the visitor study, as well as print materials, in Spanish and English for visitors. And we really tried to hit 2 points. One was with our park partners who could provide guided hikes and tours. And for those who didn't want a guided hike but wanted to sort of explore the parks on their own, we created self-guided tour sheets. Thank you. So after a process of really talking to some other park agencies and looking at some other examples, we did apply for funding for the shuttle. And from the Transportation Authority, we received a little over $200,000 funding for 2 years. The County Parks Foundation was very generous in supporting with $50,000. And then Measure K funding to cover some staff and promotional materials for the 2-year period. So how did we spread the word about this shuttle? A lot of, anytime you're trying to introduce a new service and to a new user group, you have to cover all the bases, not rely on just one or two. Digital media is probably the easiest and least expensive, so we certainly relied on our website, our e-newsletter, and social media, as well as our park pages. But at the same time, we realized that we needed to really connect with the communities that we were trying to serve. So quite a few community group presentations, certainly to the cities that were involved and where we had park shuttle stops, schools, faith-based groups, and most importantly, we worked with existing partners or groups that could really help us, and that included the North Fair Oaks Forward team that has a really strong presence, certainly in North Fair Oaks, but is broadening their presence into East Palo Alto and Pescadero. I would say the benefit of this, we've also developed some wonderful relationships with libraries and health. As we moved through the introductory stage and sort of launching the program, we realized that we really weren't getting the ridership that we had hoped for, that we were really aiming for. So what we did was step back and think about what might be the barriers to that. And we began offering a group scheduling service. That means that on our website, under the Park Shuttle page, you can go and submit a form and request for your group to be scheduled on the shuttle. And we ask, do you want a guided hike? Do you want a program provided by any of the docents? Or do you want hike recommendations? And do you want us to plan your ride for you? What time if you're linking up to a program that's scheduled, we can tell you what time you need to get on the shuttle, and then suggested time to depart the park. So it really is a service, and we really try to plan that out for the users. So it makes it a little bit more user friendly and more personal. We also developed a rider reward promotion where riders get to complete a little card and they receive something like a backpack or a water bottle or something like that. That's branded, of course, so it helps promote the parks and the shuttle service. And we also began working closer with the cities to cross-promote, share social media posts about the service, as well as even write it and make suggestions. We work very closely with the City of Redwood City to try and partner with some of their events in downtown Redwood City and connecting then back out to some of the other communities. Kaiser Permanente has always been a really good partner, and they helped promote the program, certainly the Parks Foundation, and all the board members were helpful. So I believe this was in your packet, and for audience members, it's available at the front. If you look at the rider data, it doesn't look good. Very, very direct. We average 89 riders a month, and if you think about that service is running every Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. until about 5 p.m. on a continuous loop. A loop takes about 45 minutes, and maybe a break for lunch. You can see as you look at the hours of operation and ridership, it's not anywhere close to, the same. I would say for some of those peaks in hours of operation is when we added an extra shuttle, perhaps because there was a special event going on, and we wanted to make sure that if people were going to use the shuttle, there would be enough shuttles, people wouldn't get stranded or left behind and miss an event. So that's why you see some of those large jumps. The monthly cost ends up being $8,000 a month. So if you're thinking about 89 riders in a month, that's not a real good expense to individual ratio. So as we've completed this first year, it was a great opportunity for the staff to come together, as well as get some input from board members, as well as community groups, and certainly our park partners about, what were our observations, and this is helpful in us thinking about how we might move forward. The continuous loop route process is quite costly, and it's actually really difficult to provide a consistent level of service because they're running on a continuous loop. There are a lot of factors that play into timing, and also for people who are trying to plan their schedule and get on a shuttle. It's not that real hard start and stop as you might expect some transportation methods. But at the same time, there were some successes or observations that really help us think ahead. The group visits and scheduling those really allowed for us to personally understand what the individual groups were looking for in terms of their park experience, what was their awareness, going into it and understanding the parks and what might be there for them, and also us understanding, the age group, the language needs, even, long hike versus sort of more prolonged hike, challenging hike, or did they just want to spend time in the visitor center? So it really allowed us to get to know the potential user groups and understand a little bit more about what they were looking for in terms of experience. It also allowed us to start building the relationships for some of these groups. So for example, certainly Siena Youth Center has used the Park Shuttle very often, as has East Palo Alto Library. And then Ravenswood Clinic, and now we have some other groups that are scheduled for March and April as well. At the same time, we checked in with some of the other park agencies to see how they were sort of trying to crack this nut in terms of helping connect non-user groups to parks, and they have had similar observations and are making some changes in how they have provided the service. A really good example is the Golden Gate Parks Conservancy and their partnership with their libraries. And interestingly enough, they actually come down to our North County libraries and pick up people and take them into GGNRA property. So very interesting. Next slide. So I know that in your report you have some recommendations, and just sort of to get a little bit more detail in what we're thinking is to improve our numbers and our rider per cost ratio, eliminate one route each day per shuttle. And as I looked at the data, that probably is not a hard and fast decision yet, but probably would be the very last shuttle of the day, because we see practically 0 riders on that on a pretty consistent basis. At the same time, we're thinking about relocating one of the stops to a more visible location. Right now, the Menlo Park stop is at Marketplace Park, which is actually in a neighborhood, and it's a very small park, so it doesn't have a lot of foot traffic. It is near a Samtrans bus stop, but it doesn't have a lot of foot traffic or activity that might sort of lend itself to something about going, to a park or going someplace outside of the community. And we're looking at relocating this stop to the Menlo Park Community Center that's on Terminal Way in the Bellhaven area, which is only a few blocks from this location at Marketplace, but is in between the senior center and the community center. So there's a lot of activity by a whole array of demographic user groups. Right now, we are not recommending that we apply again for a second 2-year funding grant cycle, and that we really think about using some alternative methods. Certainly the group visit idea, because that allows us that personal introduction and interaction with groups who are interested in getting to know the parks, and a more personalized experience for those groups. And then working with some funding sources, with the San Mateo County Parks Foundation being one that has a transportation fund. And so certainly that would be one way to cover some of the costs of the group visits. And I don't have anything further, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your report, Carla. Does anyone have any questions? Maida?
Thank you so much, Carla. It's a wonderful report, and it's a report that I've been certainly looking forward to. I have a question to council. First, this is a non-action item, but there are very specific recommendations within the report that it seems to me they are very good recommendations. I don't have any problem with the recommendations. It seems to me that depending on how we react to the report, which I think nobody is going to have any problem with, we are essentially going to be taking action indirectly in terms of those recommendations. So is there any concern to that effect? And what's fueling that, what is fueling that thought is that when you look at the minutes from the last meeting, I think we received a similar report, and the reporting of it indicates that we expressed support,
Right.
for that. So that's one question, and let me just go through the other questions.
Is there a question that you would like me to answer at this point?
Are we taking indirect action by accepting the report
no,
in terms of supporting those program
My
recommendations?
understanding is that, it was agendized as a discussion item. Staff does have its recommendations that they are bringing to the commission's attention and are welcoming input from the commission, but that they're not seeking at this point a formal vote wherein something would be passed along to the Board of Supervisors as the recommendation of the commission or something to that effect.
So if that is true, is the intention of staff to bring it back at some point, at the point at which they're going to be ready to go to the Board of Supervisors with specific recommendations as concerns this program?
Not at this point. We were hoping to inform the commission about our direction especially related to not reapplying for the grant funds. That's really what we wanted to run by you guys and get your thoughts on. And then we would just, we don't need action from the board to not apply for something. So it would just the program would just end in September.
Okay. In terms of specific questions through the chair, the group scheduling technique apparently works. Partnering with the library, the Siena Youth Center, and the Ravenswood Health Center, in terms of encouraging folks to to visit our park. I think that's a very good schedule. That's a good strategy. The question that I do have in terms of the groups that have taken advantage of the group scheduling, have they been predominantly youth groups or youth-related groups? And if that's the case, how are we getting adults, between 25 and 50 or seniors, and have there been any groups with those populations who have taken advantage of the program?
That is true. I would say the majority of the groups that have been scheduling, certainly Siena Center and East Palo Alto, some adults come along, but it's primarily primarily youth. With the Ravenswood clinic, it was mixed. I would say it was a small group, but predominantly adults. So I think moving forward, one of the advantages of relocating this Menlo Park location to the location on Terminal Way is there is a senior center and a community center with primarily youth-focused activities. So having the park shuttle right there, which is also a Samtrans stop at the senior center, really allows us to make a direct connection to that senior population at least.
Through the chair again, I think the relocating the spot does make sense, but I think we're probably going to need to do some additional work. And I think it was located at that small park because of its proximity to the Boys and Girls Club. And it seems as if we've not had any partnership with the Boys and Girls Club in terms of, them taking advantage of the group scheduling and so on and so forth. So we can take it to the Onetta Harris Community Center facility, but I think we may have to do additional work in terms of partnering, because I think there's a youth center facility there that we probably need to work with the recreation leaders or supervisors that are attached to that particular facility. And there's also, of course, the Onetta Harris Community Center, which we would have to make some formal partnership relationships, to really make a difference. Because otherwise, just relocating it there, we're going to be in the same problem that we had, with the previous location. The senior center is there, but the senior center is not open on weekends, and so we're not necessarily going to be able to tap into that population. But I have thought about this, and I'm thinking that perhaps perhaps the decision to terminate it may be a good decision. But it's terminating the shuttle program, but not terminating efforts, to try to get, to get groups from those specific communities, to take advantage of the parks that we do have. And I think our approach has been that we'll make it an educational enterprise, so to speak. So we get groups of people and we take them to the parks and, with a docent, somebody, takes them around and so on and so forth, and they learn something. And we're hoping that would translate into the general community being aware of the parks and subsequently making decisions on their own in the future that they're going to take advantage of those parks. But I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, because I think we'll end up with the same situation where it was primarily youth groups that are going to take advantage, because everybody thinks it's young people that need to be educated, not older people. I'm not suggesting that's necessarily correct, And so I think we ultimately need to figure out how do we get that middle population of adults, to be engaged in parks, because they are the parents, and if we get them engaged, then we know we'll get their children engaged, and they'll probably get their parents and grandparents, engaged as well. So I think we still have that challenge. How do we get that particular population to be engaged? Relocating it to the Onetta Harris Community Center, that is primarily a youth facility again. It has a youth center, and the people that take advantage of the gymnasium and so on and so forth tend to be young people. That older population is not there. And I think we need to figure out a way how we can get, that population engaged. And I do have some suggestions. I think me and Simone are going to have a subcommittee that is certainly working on it, and we'll offer some suggestions. So one last question. You say that we got a grant of about $20,000, and the Parks and Rec Foundation gave us an additional grant, a matching grant of $50,000. But you also mentioned that some Measure A funds have been tapped, to pay for staff, staff support in the program. So when you talk about the per cost, the daily cost of the program, does it include the Measure A funds, or we're just talking about those two?
That figure, if you go back to the slide that shows ridership and cost,
Right.
really is just the transportation cost. So that would just be how much it's costing for the shuttle
Bus.
to operate. Yep.
And so if you were to get the actual cost, really, including the staff cost, then, it's a considerably higher cost than this. Okay, thank you. And is it possible to get that figure?
Yeah, I'm sure we could look at the expenditures for staff. We know how much was allocated. We'd have to go back and look and see how much actually was spent, and then we have documentation for promotion costs.
Essentially, it was 2 park aides for the weekends. So it wasn't a huge staff cost, but
Okay.
there was some costs, definitely.
Okay, but what about your time?
That's a good point. Yeah, we don't track hourly time, so.
Yeah, well, she
yeah.
spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
On a considerable amount of time on this program.
Well, I think part of it is that, hopefully we're taking those learning lessons that we learned from this, and as you indicated, these connections that we've made, we need to keep those alive and enhance them, and then look for other ways to provide transportation and engagement with our parks. So I think there has been value.
Right.
In terms of engaging with community and getting us out in front and getting us presentations in the neighborhoods and getting some folks to the parks,
Right.
but then also building relationships.
Good. And finally, through the chair, I'd be opposed to us not reapplying. I would strongly suggest that we need to reapply. We certainly will not use the funds, suggest that we use the funds in the same way that we have, because we've concluded it doesn't work as well. But I think there are other ways that I think we can still apply because the objective is still there. We need to get populations from these communities engaged with our parks. That objective is not going away. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. When is the application deadline? When does this, is this passed or is this, okay? Well, you know, the whole thing of trying to bring more people to the parks that are not using the parks now from the underserved communities, I think is not only just a worthy goal, but that really ought to be what we do on this Parks Commission, I think. The way the parks are located isn't really fair. You know, I live within a block of a park, and so I can go there whenever I want, and that's not fair because some people live, 20 miles away and don't have access with their own transportation. So this is really a worthy goal. It's great that we've done this. I wish it had worked better, but now that we have all this data and we know how it worked, I wanted to suggest a couple things, and I wanted to ask a couple questions. Is the weekend pattern, is that cast in stone? Does that have to do with permitting, or could that be changed to a Friday, Saturday rather than Saturday, Sunday? Or
So the weekend pattern based on this program is not cast in stone. It would take a significant amount of work to change the days, but we can change some hours, we can change some route stops, not too many, because we're also working to be compliant to the MTA's parameters and for this program. So there is some wiggle room just to sort of step back and think about what we're using as shuttles. It's actually those shuttles and the vendor that provides the connection between public transportation and employer locations right now. So if you leave today and you're driving by the Caltrain station, you will see the very same shuttles dropping off and picking up people at Caltrain that drive our shuttles on the weekend. So that might present a challenge if you're trying to go to a weekday.
well, since we have until September, and good things can happen between now and then, I was thinking that maybe the loop isn't really giving us the results that we would like, and if we could kind of skew more towards scheduled trips and reservations through schools, and maybe even after-school care. A lot of schools, if not every school, has an after-school program. Of course, those are during the week. So in order to integrate more with the schools, I'm sure kids would love to go on a field trip during the week to get out of school. And so that might be easier to sell. And between now and September, it might be nice to, contact some more Boys and Girls Clubs or YMCAs or, all that, because school is ending in June, and then there will be all kinds of different programs starting up this summer, which we might be able to take advantage of. It would be nice to take advantage of these buses while we have them, and just in case something magically starts working really well, we could apply in a future year. So I think this is really important. I hope that we'll all think about it between now and September and experiment and try some new programs and see if we can find the magic, because this is really a worthy goal.
I don't want to widen this any further than it is, and you've been up here for a while, and an amazing presentation. To echo what Commissioner Mehta and Commissioner Marilis, we got together and we're still working on a variety of things. I personally find it rather striking and alarming to know that the participation is very low, and that's staggering numbers that are not to our favor. And if we want to continue this. And I think in agreement with Neil, Commissioner, is to find other means of sort of networking to other groups to keep this alive. Because if you just kind of just cut it and say, you know, the term of endearment, peace out, then that's nothing. That's nothing. That's to the demeanor of the parks, because our mission up here is to keep uprising the image of the Parks Commission and to reach out to every community in San Mateo County and say, hey, this does exist and you can access it. If Commissioner Marilis is inches away from a park and he can go there anytime he wants, I myself, being close to Daly City and Pacifica and San Bruno and South City, have access to all the parks. I just find it rather, and while you're up here and we have you up here, what was, according to your findings, why did you come up with what was the end result of a low turnout in the course of launching up to now?
Well, I don't know that I can put my finger on one thing. I will say that it is extremely challenging to introduce a new concept and a new service that's available, and at the same time, you're working a little bit to change behavior. Changing behavior is really difficult. And it takes quite a long period of time. And when we started this, I tried to remind people that the Take a Hike program that is very popular today and has a huge number of people that participated, the very first Take a Hike was primarily staff, and I think it was a total of 5 people. So over the years, now we're in about year 7, if not longer, that has grown. And so word spreads, up and down and out, and ripples. So it takes quite a bit of time and effort and perseverance to get that word out and sort of try to develop a change among any user group, not any targeted group. But I do think that there is a possibility of almost, if you will, scaling it back and working on a very small set and a very targeted group. To your point, seniors, youth, different communities. And the beauty, I think, about sort of pulling this back and targeting groups in particular and using dedicated resources, whether it be from the foundation or another funding source, is that it actually allows us to go into additional communities.
Nobody said it was easy, and no one is noticing your valiant efforts to promote this. Nevertheless, you have all these interest groups sort of connected all in one lane, and at the end of the day, they can gather around that safe zone and say, what can we do to increase visibility? You guys have worked on this collectively, and everyone in this room knows that. The commission knows that. So it's not a linear equation calculus. We know that you're doing so much to promote this and increasing awareness. We are very well aware of that. We just don't want to see this go away.
And we don't want to see it go away either. We just want it to kind of change into a better system, a more targeted system, as Neil was saying, a more system that's going to come in and say, go to the after-school program and say, we'll provide you free transportation, bring your kids out there, right? Rather than having this continuous shuttle. And one of the challenges with this program was we were required to have this continuous shuttle. It had a particular requirement to get the money, and we had to fulfill that. We didn't have much flexibility. I think going to a more flexible program is a better answer.
Yeah. Good Chair. First of all, this is a very good program. This is just an experimental program to me. But based on what we experienced, both the park and the commission, I think if you analyze, and I reviewed the program yesterday and I checked some of those reports. And if you see the program review and based on the ridership data, if you look on January 17, between January of 2017 and February 2017, that's the highest peak of ridership. And can you check whether that's 150 people or riders?
I can tell you exactly why that was. That was the Siena Youth Center, and we had 50 riders that day.
Yeah, approximately is that 150 in between 150 riders.
Well, it was 50 riders, and depending on how they count it, because they count going and coming. So
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Based on that, if you analyze the lowest data on this report, when we started this program between September of 2016 and to the end of September and October 2017, if you average that program and then you're telling us that this is just 97, is it 97 riders or something like that, trips
89
per month,
riders.
and with an average monthly cost of 8,610. So
Yep.
to me, if you put analytically, as far as the recommendation is concerned, we don't expect on 1 year to go higher, commissioners. This is an experimental program. And people, what we need right now is to enhance a marketing program. We need to have the foundation to help us to market vigorously. All of us, not only the park, but we, as a commissioner in District 2, I think we can have a partnership with our supervisors that their staff can recommend something that will help to bring more people on their community. On District 2 I know that some of those people have, they have their own car. But you respected also Menlo Park, East Palo Alto. You can tell to our Commissioner Meda here, Commissioner Meda, how many people in your area, community? You mean that there's no car? But we need more vigorously a marketing like you as part of your community to give more support to the park, isn't it? So what we need right now is to continue the program. We don't expect too much ridership between September up to October. Now that we focus on the not really a 5 months period between January of 2017 and February 17, analytically, that's the highest peak of ridership. But we need right now from February 17 to October 17, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months of those that we can help the park, the staff, the foundation, and then I think you can create a marketing program to us and give it to us, to the commissioners, and to get that base organization, the community organization, to bolster the kind of program that they have. This is a very good program. We don't expect too much now in 1 year to bring more people.
Okay, thank you. I think they understand.
Yeah,
And
please.
I just wanted to wrap this up because
Okay.
we don't have too much time, but I have two questions. One is the funding that we applied for. It is particular funding that we might not be able to apply for something else, so we'd have to do the same thing we're doing now. So that might not be something we want to apply for. So I just wanted to point that out. And then the other thing is that maybe if we're going to continue this, maybe we look at continuing it in a different manner where we do it once a month from certain areas, like so that every area or different areas are, different times a month, or, you get 3 times in this area. I don't know. That's just a suggestion that I'll leave to the staff to look at. So thank you, Carla. I don't think we have any further questions.
Through the chair, can I just make one final comment? It's going to be real brief.
A quick
I got,
one?
I got a suggestion. We have experience with Take a Hike. We know it took 7 years for him to get from 5 primarily staff person to what it is currently. This program is relatively new, barely a year. And I'm part of the statistic on that very first day. going to the park, and it had a rocky start. The shuttle was not there when it was supposed to be there, so there were some difficulties there. I'd like to suggest that we combine those two concepts, the take a hike concept and the shuttle concept. And so when we pick people up from these various locations, we are taking them to a very specific activity called take a hike at Wonderlick, take a hike at Edgewood. You know what I'm saying? Just combine those two concepts, because I'm concerned that we are so focused on the youth population that we make this entirely an educational program. It should be a health program. So we should partner with the health department and state that, we are taking people on a physical activity, and you can take this shot on this particular day and provide incentives. We can get the health department to give them pedometers or whatever those things are, and we can track how many miles they walk over an entire month, and whoever has the most steps, garners the most steps, gets a little gift of some kind. So I think there are certain things that we can do, as Commissioner Henrink is suggesting, just from a marketing and promoting perspectives between now and what Commissioner Merrill is suggesting, between now and September when it ends. But I strongly recommend that we reapply for the funding.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just wrapping up, I guess we'll hear something back on as we're going forward. We'll get updates and then we can have a discussion. So thank you, Carla. Thank you, commissioners. So we'll move on 4.2, which is the Coyote Point and Promenade project.
Yes, I'm going to do that presentation. We're going to pull it up here. Go to the beginning, Lori, the first slide. There you go, start at that one. All right, next slide, please. So this afternoon I'm here to talk about the Eastern Promenade project, and I thought it'd be kind of interesting to look a little bit of the history of Coyote Point, because it does have a very interesting history. First, just briefly. And one of the things I wanted to focus in on was this idea. In 1922, they created Pacific City at Coyote Point, which was a huge amusement park. Next slide, please. And I got a few historic photos here. Next slide. And right in this area where the project is, this was occurring. This huge amusement park with supposedly this biggest roller coaster west of Detroit. And this Ferris wheel you see, the kind of the round building on the left-hand side of the screen, that's actually now the Ferris wheel in the San Francisco Zoo. They moved it up there after they closed this facility. Next slide. And the reason why I'm showing these slides is because part of this project to me brings back some fun to the Bayside, brings back some activity, brings back some people, and that's one of the elements. This project has a lot of elements, but one of the things that really attracted me to this project and really wanted me to be a advocate for it was this notion of having fun along the bay. A lot of the bay has been grabbed up by tech companies and buildings, and the idea of creating some promenades, walking space, community space really appealed to me. Next slide, please. And this is what it looks like now from the water. So you see, it doesn't look that much fun, but it's fine, But it's got the parking lot, it's got some grass, it's got some facilities, and it's got kind of a bayside. Next slide. So this project takes care of is focused in on this Eastern Promenade. I think we all know where Coyote Point is if you look on the upper left, but the blue shaded area is really the focus of this project. Next slide, please. I'll show you some pictures of what it looks like currently. So you see we kind of have a eroded beach area. The beach is a mixture of silt and gravel. Next slide. We have an older restroom facility. Next slide. We had some erosion and a lot of the asphalt is cracked. Next slide. Looking back, and you can see when the tide is out, we have some piers, old piers. If you look, you can see little bits of wood coming out of the sand. Part of this project is to deal with that as well. Next slide. Here's some folks using it. Next slide. And here's a picture where you can really see those kind of piers coming out of the dirt. So next slide. So from our perspective, the need for the project is that the beach is really eroded. As you can see, the recreational opportunities, people are still using it, and we do get 500,000 visitors to Coyote Point a year, but maybe it's not the experience that it could be. We'd like to increase that experience and make it better. We'd like to adapt to sea level rise. You know, it's a big initiative here in the county in terms of our concern about San Mateo County, especially the airport and other facilities as sea level rise happens, and this facility and this park will also be impacted, and we want to recognize that and adapt to it. We also would like to get a newer restroom with had showers for folks, outdoor showers. They could wash the sand off their feet and deal with those old pilings. Next slide, please. And sea level rise is going to be a big deal. Here's a 36-inch, if this happens, sea level rise in this area. You can see the airport is going to have some challenges. But if you look down at the bottom right of your screen, that's Coyote Point. And the thing that I found really interesting when I was doing some historical research of Coyote Point, it actually once was an island. It had kind of a little marsh all the way around it, and it was an island out in the bay. And they filled that in, and you could see if sea level rise happens, it's going to become an island again. Next slide. So our purpose is to address the shoreline impact, create really a new recreational opportunity that's going to be unique. Relocate utilities, that's a big deal. It's called managed retreat, where you take utilities and restrooms and things that you have in this area, and you just say, hey, we're not going to be able to have this in this area anymore. We need to move it. And it sets an example of it, and also restores some of our deteriorated facilities, like some of the parking lots. Next slide, please. So what are we going to do? We're going to demolish the parking area, restroom, the promenade, and remove those utilities that are underneath that. We're going to install some shoreline protection. We're going to create a beach, which is going to be a unique feature. There's going to be a seawall behind the beach, and then there's going to be new facilities for folks. So let's look at that. So this is the existing condition. I'm sorry, this is in plan view, so a little hard to read, but if you see on the top of the screen, that's the San Francisco Bay, right? And then you see the parking areas, and then you see the upper, if you look to the right, it kind of goes up the hill, and you can see the grades there. That's kind of an unused parking area, or less used, and you can see where the restroom is in the middle of the screen. And then you can see on the top left, it says BCDC shoreline mean, and that's kind of where our shoreline generally is. And then 100-foot shoreline band. So next slide. So here's what we're proposing to do. And I got a better picture of this, but I just wanted to show you kind of a before and after, if you will. So what are we looking at here? Well, you see all those parking spaces and things that had been on the top of the screen, they're all moved back. And we move that parking by rehabilitating the parking up the hill. We create some what we call bioretention areas. That's kind of in the middle of the screen, which are areas that collect runoff from parking areas and treat it before it goes back into the ground. And then we create this seawall. It's kind of the jagged line near the top of the screen. And that's going to be a really neat feature that's going to prevent sand from making its way up onto the promenade, but also be a place for folks to sit and then create that interface between the beach. Those lines coming out are possibilities for folks, especially that have less capabilities to get out to the beach. So it's going to be kind of beach mats. And then we create this cobble area on the top right that really protects the shoreline. And then in the middle, we have a perched beach. So if you let me go to the next slide, I'll show you kind of more color. So if you see there's our seawall, that kind of line that's squiggly, and then that all becomes beach. And this is prettier because it has the little beach umbrellas in the middle and such. But this is going to be a unique experience. You know, there aren't many projects that include along the bay that have a beach. And this beach is going to be what's called a perched beach. So the sand isn't going to go right in the water. We have a little structure. It's going to kind of hold the sand in that you'll kind of step off to get into the water. But if we don't have that, then the water is just going to take away all our sand. So we need to keep our sand kind of in our sandbox, if you will. Oh, go back, please. So you see the bioretention areas there. This includes the upper parking lot. It includes that, like I said, that we're going to need to build this cobble kind of structure on the middle and top of the screen. Next slide. Okay. So where are we? Well, when I got this job, I was amazed when I found out the design was pretty much complete. We have 100% design. The permitting is done and the compliance is done. It's like it's shovel ready, which is amazing and wonderful. So I really wanted to refocus our attention on this project. Good news is we just got a note from the state that the Department of Boating and Waterways is proposing to give us $700,000. That's part of that 1.5 million, and that's in the budget. So it's 99% guaranteed. So we're at 1.5 million. We're just applying for another 1.6. We should find out in the next couple months whether we get that. And the project cost total is 5.5 to 6. So if we get those other funds, we're going to be at least halfway there for sure. And that's pretty exciting. And so what's our next steps? We want to take this kind of roadshow to Burlingame and San Mateo. We want to kind of kick up interest. That's one of the reasons we wanted to bring it back to the commission today, is to make sure the commissioners are aware of this project, are talking about it to their communities. This really is a regional draw, and I think it affects the whole county because everybody can use this site, and everybody does, for large-scale picnics and events. And plus, this will give the opportunity to have larger festivals and such at Coyote Point. The site, as you saw in the 1920s, held thousands of people a day, and I think we could bring back some of that feeling. We're also working with the foundation on a fundraising campaign to look at trying to bring in some more private donations for this project. And then depending on where we end up with those over the next few months, we will see where we are and then try and see if we can get some additional funding or phase the project with the funding that we have. Next slide, is that it? And there's it. Just a nice photo of some of the multitude of recreational opportunities that exist at Coyote Point that we want to enhance for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a wonderful project, and I'm hoping we get it, and I would love to talk to Michelle about the capital campaign at some point. Just for the sake of time and the rest of the agenda, if I'll take questions for Jonathan regarding this, but if we can try to keep our questions to concise and not too much input or ongoing talk. If that makes sense. Anyone have any questions?
I do. 6 million is a lot of money, and if you only have so far 1.5 million, we have a long way to go. This 1.5 million, is there any amount that we're required to spend by a certain time? So, or this is...
The only number I've seen is 2022 for one of the grants.
Okay. And when it was Pacific City, I'm trying to imagine exactly where the location is. And the fact that you say that, Coyote Point was at one point an island. So was the island part of Pacific City, or where exactly was Pacific City located in relation to, quote unquote, the island and the marsh area around it?
Well, originally it was a point out in the bay, but then it was filled in the 1850s. So it was filled in pretty early to create pasture land to connect to the mainland. Okay. So that was filled, but then this came in the 20s where these folks bought 90 acres right at this location. And then created this. They spent $2 million or $3 million at that time, which was an incredible amount of money for 2 years of operation. But
yeah, it is a wonderful project, and I think whatever we can do to make it happen, I think we should. I'm sorry. That concludes my comments. I'm sorry.
Are there any other comments? Okay.
I think it's about time, Director, that you are now in your position to accomplish this kind of event. It's about time. People like the one that we are questioning some of those ridership and all those things that we have. Coyote Point is one of those beautiful parks. It's a gateway to, San Francisco, and people need some this kind of, especially promenade. This kind of promenade, people. It's like Pier 39 before. It's like a land. It's like a, going to you know, Treasure Island or something. But we have Coyote Point, one of the best park in this town, and we need people that maybe we can go there and then see and walk and then enjoy the beauty of the park. So I think, to me, positively, I think we can work you together on this kind of project. Thank you.
You and I had an opportunity to go over this several months back. If you pull this off, this could be the Bay Area's Coney Island. This could be the Bay Area's beach boardwalk of Santa Cruz. This is a happening place, and I really hope it does get passed. It's a bit pricey, but I think we can maneuver, and I think it's something that would be, I think people within San Mateo County and entire Bay Area would come, and you can see developments, and you'll see the numbers increase through the roof.
Okay, I think we're done with that. Thank you very much. Moving on, 5.1, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of December 7th, 2017 Park and Rec Commission meeting?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Second. All right, do we have any discussion on these minutes? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thank you. Item 6, Park Foundation Executive Director Report.
Acknowledge that the youth commissioner did join us, so that is included in the minutes.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Maida, for pointing that out, and we apologize for not having a seat prepared for you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. There are 3 things that I wanted to bring to your attention. First, just wanted to let you know that the Parks Foundation is really ramping up our youth environmental education field trip program. And we're excited that just this past month, we were able to connect the St. James Community Foundation, which is an after-school math tutoring program in San Mateo, to Memorial Park. And they were greeted by Ranger Catherine and Ranger David and had a wonderful time. And then also, we have provided a little bit of funding to the Wilderness School, which is run out of Thornton High School and is part of the Jefferson Union High School District in Daly City. And they run the ropes course on San Bruno Mountain. And we're supporting some of their field trip efforts. So we just put a blog out yesterday. And since then, I've received an email from the La Honda Pescadero Unified School District. So I'm really excited the word is getting out. It does just focus on youth at this point, but we're always happy to figure out other ways to connect other people to the parks too. I also wanted to put out a save the date for everyone. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary celebration on Sunday, September 9th. It's going to be at Huddart Park. It's going to be in the afternoon. So mark that on your calendars, and we'll be following up with more details soon. And then finally, we will be presenting a gift to the county at the end of this month. And I may have mentioned this last time, but among the things that we will be providing the county is additional funding for Alembeek Trail in Wonderlick Park. So far, we've raised over $12,000 for that reroute, so I'll be talking to you a little bit more, Scott. and then we're also one of the underwriters of season 4 for Open Road, which is Doug McConnell's show, talks kind of like 2.0 of Bay Area backroads. The season kicked off with a rerun of Devil's Slide a couple weeks ago. It's they're not going to be showing any episodes in February because of the Olympics and the Super Bowl. But starting in March, there will be all new episodes, and I'm working with County Parks and Doug McConnell and a couple other people to see if maybe we can get an episode about San Bruno Mountain. So stay tuned for that. If we get it, we will make sure everybody knows when that one airs. But right now, Open Road airs 6:30 p.m. on Sunday afternoons, but not in February. And that is my update. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your report. Commissioners, do you have any questions? All right, moving on. Number 7, Park Director's Report.
Next slide, please. First, I wanted to introduce Rolando Yoquera, who is our new finance man. And he has been awesome. He came over from the county manager's office and, did I get that right? The county manager's office, and has done a great job kind of getting us set for this mid-year and these budget issues and some things I'm going to talk about in my report as well. Next slide, please. First thing I wanted to update the commission on, and some of these are in your report, but I wanted to highlight a few things. The Sanchez Adobe, on February 9th, we will be getting the responses to our request for proposals for the interpretive center. This is a prefabricated building, and we're hoping to get good responses on the 9th so that we can move forward with getting that prefabricated building built. And then we can move ahead this spring and summer with the construction of the utilities to that building and the concrete pad, which we're planning on doing in-house. And then we would get the facility come in, dropped off and dropped right onto the pad, hook it up, and be ready for business. The project also includes some other improvements, but I wanted to give the commission an update on that one. Next slide, please. A flood park, the EIR, which is an environmental impact report, which we have to do related to CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, is being finalized now. We had meetings with Menlo Park, and we have talked to the community, and we've worked through a lot of the issues, and we feel like we're pretty close. So we'll be moving ahead with that process, and that's a really exciting project. Another one we hope to work with the Parks Foundation on and the community to generate some funds to build these wonderful features in that unique county park. Next slide, please. And we just thought we'd include a picture of the nice poppies in the park, in the flood park. I always like to show some photos. Ramona is here from our natural resources side of the house. She does camera trapping, which means that we don't actually harm any animals. We just take pictures of them, mainly at night. And I always like to show some photos of some of the wildlife in our parks. Those were two gray foxes. Next slide is a bobcat that we caught on camera. Next slide. This is a ferret.
Wow.
Which is something that I've never seen in a park, but it's a very interesting and unique creature. Next slide. Dusky-footed wood rat. You can see why they call them dusky-footed. Next slide. This wasn't actually one of our photos, but I did want to bring this up because we had a big meeting this week about mountain lions and are trying to get the word out to communities about the monitoring that's happening, because it seems like there's a lot of anecdotal language going on in the communities about mountain lion sightings, and with everybody's cameras on their porches now and stuff, there's a lot more on Nextdoor and other things about mountain lions. So we're going to beef up our campaign to talk about mountain lions and talk about them in the parks, but we definitely have mountain lion activity in our parks, especially around Quarry and San Pedro Valley Park. So they're out there. Next slide. Pillar Point Plus, I showed this one because we got all geared up for Mavericks, the Mavericks surf competition, which fizzled. But it's a big effort for us. It requires a lot of overtime. We actually closed the bluffs because we don't want folks falling off, and they're unstable, and we get too many crowds out there. Next slide. But I just wanted to bring that up to show you that is a big effort on ours. We do recover a lot of those costs, but we have to gear up and be ready for that. And that's something we were prepared to do over the Martin Luther King weekend. Next slide. Moving on to Quarry Park, where Sam, who is here, is working on the master plan for Quarry Park. We've gone out with a couple community meetings, and really have some, I think, some good ideas for this developed area, really enhancing some of the facilities there. And we've kind of started to really take on the rest of the park, what to do with all those eucalyptus trees. And next slide, what to do with this little lake, not really a lake, it's more like a pond. Next slide. When I was up there, it looked more like this, kind of land of the lost. It was an amazing, interesting sight, but we're looking at it and we're getting an analysis of it to see what sort of shape it's in and to see whether or not it stays or goes as part of the master planning process. Next slide. So that brings me to the end, but I just wanted to show a picture and note a couple things at Pescadero and Memorial. We're really gearing up to get this water and wastewater project done at Memorial. It's a big deal. It's not glamorous. It's not pretty, but it's important. Very important that let's end there. And Lori, stop. Thanks. So we're gearing up to do the water project and the wastewater project. And then we're also really diving into this Old Hall Road project as well, which was the failure of the old quote-unquote Humboldt crossing, which was an old logging crossing, which is part of the trail, and it's a big effort as well. And one more thing I wanted to bring up. We also did a short video related to an issue in our parks, a natural resources issue, where we're trying to preserve and protect our marbled murrelet populations by reducing the numbers of crows and jays in our campgrounds. And so we wanted to show you this quick video that was prepared recently by our staff. This will be given to folks who are going to camp
under the towering redwoods. Memorial Park is the perfect escape into the forest. Saved from the logging industry by the grassroots efforts of a group of local school children in 1924, Memorial Park was the beginning of the San Mateo County Park system. At almost 700 acres of parkland, there are many interesting places to explore.
Welcome to Memorial County Park. We hope you enjoy your time in the redwoods, and please remember to keep your picnic areas and campsites crumb clean.
Keep your site crumb clean by following these steps.
When you're done cooking and eating, clean up all your scraps. Clean up all your crumbs. Store all your food and any smelly items in an animal-proof food locker. And throw away all your garbage in an animal-proof trash can. For dishes, follow these simple steps. Scrape waste into trash. Wipe with a towel. Wash. Rinse. There is a county ordinance that prohibits feeding wildlife, and anyone in violation of that ordinance may receive a citation. Feeding wildlife can have unseen effects on animals without feeding them directly. Memorial Park is home to small endangered seabirds called marbled murrelets. Mamus are remarkable because unlike other seabirds, they nest high in the canopy of old-growth redwood trees. Unfortunately, when Steller's jays, the bluebird with the black mohawk, find a mamu nest, they will push the parent off the nest and eat the egg. Mamus only lay one egg a year, so it is a huge loss for such a rare bird. When you leave food out or don't clean up your site, Steller's jays will come in and eat your food, which will only attract more and more Steller's jays. More Steller's jays means more mamu nests being found and more young mamus dying.
Remember to keep your sites crumb clean, and you will be doing your part to help save the endangered marbled murrelet.
So thank you. That
Very good.
that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, and thank you for the overview and the very thorough written report as well. Does anyone have any questions for our park director?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Rita?
On your financial report, fiscal services report, the Coyote Point Marina is anticipating a deficit. Is this the first time they have a deficit? It's like an enterprise fund, and
We're going to put Rolando on the hot seat here.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Rolando, again, the new Parks
Welcome,
Administrative
Rolando.
Services
Nice
Manager.
to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you. So I just want to let the commissioners know that this is a projection and a point in time. So in December, when we ran the projections, we were limited with certain information, and so yes, at the moment we are projecting a negative variance of about 170,000. However, we will meet with the marina to revise the projections to make sure that it's accurate. One of the main issues I think we encountered was with the sale of fuel. It wasn't known that we would be selling as much fuel as we had anticipated, so that's something that we'll work with Harbor Master Mark and revise the estimates, and that's something that we can come back to the commission to let them know.
And it's a good question because, and when we talk in April, we're going to bring a budget presentation to the commission, so we can dive into this a little bit more. But the marina is its own enterprise fund; it's its own fund, so we can talk about that more. And it'd be good conversation to have.
Right. Through the chair, one other question, not to Rolando, but the harbor master Mark Bettis has completed PC 832. What is that, and what does post certified mean?
That's peace officer training. That's the same training that all the Rangers go through. So for him to enforce rules and regulations, and also work with the Coast Guard and other police agencies and emergency response agencies,
Right.
you're required to take 832 training.
Okay, so that allows him to arrest somebody.
He cannot arrest. He can detain. That's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's a difference.
And cite. That's correct.
And cite. And final question through the chair. The call for volunteer grant applications. I noticed that most of them are friends groups. So this is a grant fund that is only allowed? I mean, are only friends group allowed, or are there any other community agencies that may want to, for instance, help us in our efforts of getting more people using our parks? Can they apply for these grants?
So we really use this funding to support our park partners. As you know, our park partners are nonprofits themselves primarily, and the beauty of this is we're working to strengthen the relationship that we have with existing groups, help them either to grow or to add new services. That being said, you know, as other groups, and just since the time I've been here, this list has actually expanded. So as groups come in and they start working with us, we get to know one another. We know we can depend on them. Our staff know that they have a way of working with them, and then that's established. Then they are invited to participate in this funding source as well.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Rolanda. I just had a question. I saw the births are up. They're above their target. Is that included in the Coyote Point Marina, or is that a separate budget?
Are you,
So birth
you're
rentals?
referencing performance?
Yeah, it says the rental revenue for H1 was 528K versus a target of 475. So I'm reading
So-
that as we made, or we're in 50K additional. And is that included in the 3980B
Yes,
marina?
yes, it is.
Okay. That was my only question for further reference. Thank you. Anyone else have questions for the report? All right, hearing none. Thank you. All right, so commissioner reports. I do not have a report, but I thank you for making me the chair in my absence. And congratulations to Sam as vice chair. And I will go to District 2. Commissioner Enriquez, do you have a report? No report.
Not this time.
Commissioner Marilis? No. Okello?
We've had 2 meetings of our subcommittee dealing with, how do we market our parks? How do we get more people from throughout the county representing, various groups, participating or taking advantage of the beautiful resources that we have in our parks. And at the last meeting, Carla was very helpful in walking us through the visitor study, and making us understand basically the same report she gave to us, earlier in the afternoon, making us understand where the Department of Parks and Recreation is at, and so in any the deliberations that that subcommittee is going to have is going to be well informed by the work that has been done up to this particular moment, and so we're looking forward to reviewing the the visitor study just between the committee members, and we are hoping that certainly by the next meeting we'll come back, at least with some directional recommendations as to some possible areas that would love to recommend to the Board of Supervisors and/or to staff as to how we can improve participation in our parks.
Thank you. That's wonderful. You're working on the work plan. Commissioner Bassam, any report?
Just to echo what Commissioner Mehta and I have been working on, I think we're inching closer to that driveway of your home. We're very, very close to coming up with our own sort of synopsis in a looking at demographics, age, income, ethnicity, to increase park awareness. And I think if we meet again between now and the following meeting of April, I think we can have a better idea of where the two of us have come to an assessment of increasing park awareness.
Thank you.
Through the chair, can I just make one
Sure.
quick comment?
Right on.
My term had actually expired in January, and so I've just gotten reappointed. So I just want to say that I'm legitimately a member of the commission again, and I have my certificate.
Well, welcome again.
Thank you.
Congratulations on being recommitted to Youth Commissioner. Do you have a report? Sure.
Thank you. So, as a part of the Environmental Justice Committee, we have teamed up with the Office of Education, and we're working on a project to promote student involvement in the environment. We're doing small sub-projects, but probably the most notable one is Green Clubs Network that we're doing. So basically, each school has their own green team or like an environmental club, and we're planning to host like an event where we can have those clubs come together and discuss happenings in the environment, and also we want them to like report on what they have done as a project or to help the environment. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you know when that'll happen?
We're planning to host this Green Club meeting during April.
And you'll let us know.
Yeah,
more
I'll let you know
details.
the exact date.
Okay,
later.
perfect. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to, does anyone have any questions for the commissioners? No, on their reports? Thank you. 9 items for future agenda. I'd just like to add the work plan so we can get updates. And if we're going to get any recommendations from the commissioners, is it okay that we get them in writing to vote on them? Is that okay?
Certainly. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
If the subcommittees have a report that they would like consideration by the full board, then they can work with staff to get that into the board packet.
Okay, and that would need to be, it needs to be specific, not just work plan. It would need to be on the agenda specifically of what that would be, or it could just go under work plan.
We can discuss how to properly agendize it.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone have any other items for future agendas? Jonathan?
I have a couple I'd like to bring to the commission. In April, we'd like to bring the budget, talk about the budget, where we're at, and I also want to piggyback on that and talk a little bit about strategic planning and kind of where I see things going for the department, and that kind of ties to the budget. So I'd like to bring that up. Another thing that we'll be talking about, and this may or may not come up before the next meeting, but I want to just give you guys a heads up of where we're headed with a couple of these items. We need to work kind of on an acquisition policy. We're getting a lot of requests for the department to take on new lands, and we need to kind of develop how we approach that and what our priorities are. So be working with that. And also, we re-kicked off the fee study. So we're starting to dive back into that, and we'll talk about it a little bit in the budget presentation, but we're going to probably want a commissioner or two to participate in that process. And that's going to be looking at all of our fees across all the parks, and getting into sort of developing a policy of what fees should be supported at what level.
I believe we had someone on that, and I think it was me, but I'll have to go check. But it was part of our work plan to have a commissioner be a liaison to that, and I believe it was me.
Perfect.
So I'll send that over to you so you can see who was on what. All right, any other?
Yes, through the chair. From our last minutes, there's this whole parking lot discussion or information that I think the commission needs to have. I think the department has inherited the responsibility of managing parking lot funds from the Public Works Department. So I think I would like to suggest to the commission that we have staff probably come to us and explain to us what parking lot is. We may have the discussion within the budget discussion, since it has, there's a certain amount of money that we received with that particular transfer, and we need to understand what are the limitations of those funds, when they should be spent by, and in what types of projects, and where in the county they could be spent. So I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, why don't we wrap that into the budget, and then if there's more discussion needed, we could bring it back as a separate item, but we can start the conversation through the budget discussion.
That would be great. Thank you.
Do I hear any other agenda items, commissioners or staff? Okay, moving on, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Move that we adjourn.
And Commissioner Enriquez seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you everyone for today.